Welcome to another session of Chrissy Grammar with Robin and No Moths, and today we're going to be looking at syntax. On their own, words are like people staggering down the high street after a few too many Prosecco's shouting at taxis, which is to say, they have no class. Words need the company of other words to have some kind of class, some kind of category. So in order to describe a word as a noun or an adjective, it needs company. And they only become nouns or adjectives or verbs when they're in a sentence with other words. Let's have a look at a little example of that. I'm going to show you some examples of how we can use words in different classes in different ways. I will start by looking at this door here. And we've got a door, a noun, and to open the verb. There we go, verb noun, door open. But we've turned the verb into an adjective, turning it into the opened door. Let's have a look at our tree. A tree is a noun. We're going to cut it down. We're going to fell it. And fell is a verb. Here we go. Chop, 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 chop. We are verbing away on our noun. And down it goes. And very soon it will be on the floor. And it will become a felled tree. So we took the verb fell and turned it into an adjective to describe the tree, the felled tree. Let's have a look at a couple of nouns. Sap is a noun, in the trees, and a collector is a noun. However, we've put the two of them together and we've turned the noun sap into an adjective to describe our collector. So the sap collector. The sap has become an adjective, and now we're going to carry these logs. The verb is carry, that's definitely an action, and logs are definitely a noun. But they become the carried logs, where carry becomes an adjective describing the logs. And from that, we're going to stack them. Stack is a verb, it's something we do. Logs are things, they're nouns. But once we've stacked them, they become the stacked logs. And stack becomes an adjective. We go through the door and we're going through the grass. And grass is a noun, isn't it? It's something you can walk on and touch. And it's green. However, you could also use grass as an adjective. Say, for an example, a grass skirt, which I may be wearing, I may not, you can't tell. Don't ask, don't tell. Let's go up the hill and have a look at this huge long wall that I'm definitely not compensating for anything with. We have the wall. And the wall is a noun. It's a very definite noun. It's a prototypical noun. It's solid. And stones. Stones are also good solid nouns. So we've got stones and walls, two nouns. However, we're going to change this. We're going to have wall stones. So we're going to make wall into an adjective describing the stones. And now we're going to swap this and we're going to turn the stones into adjectives because they're now describing the wall, the stone wall. Let's go and try this little trick again. Let's go and find some more stones. Here we are, nouns lying around on the floor, and we are, by the power of magic, going to turn our nouns into adjectives. There we go, turning those stones into adjectives on the wall. So here we have our words open, logs, door, grass, tree, green, fell, wall, stack, stone. And the thing we want to remember is that on their own they don't have any class. They are unclassy words. Words only develop classes in the context of other words. They need friends to play with, otherwise they don't have any particular meaning on their own. So you need to combine them with at least one other word to decide whether they are a noun, a verb or an adjective. And so we're going to be looking at that a little bit now with these words. And we had as an example the felled logs, where we took our logs after cutting the tree down, after felling it, to make them felled logs. And so logs became the noun because they were the thing, and fell was used to describe them. So fell became the adjective. So we've got this construction down here where we have felled as an adjective and logs as a noun. And the adjective goes in front of the noun, which is how we know it's an adjective. Let's try another one with the stacked stone, and my arrows appear to be in the wrong order. So the stacked stone, and here we have the stone as our noun. So the stone is the thing, but in this case we've stacked it. We stacked it, and stack was a verb in this case, but because we've put it in front of our noun, it's being an adjective. And this is a thing to remember here, because you can have a stack, that's things that are piled up. You can stack something, that's a verb, but in this case we're using stack as an adjective, because the only thing that's important here is where stack is in relation to the other words, and here it's in front of stone. So we've made a construction, the stacked stone, where stack is an adjective because it's in front of a noun. Again, because it's in front of the noun, it's the adjective, it's just describing the stone. And you can make some quite nonsensical examples out of this. English is really powerful and really heavily based on word order, to the point you can slot almost any word in to a sentence, and as long as it's in the right place, we will recognise automatically what category of word it is, certainly unconsciously, and hopefully after a few of these consciously. But we will know what that word's supposed to be doing just on the basis of the order of the word. So we're going to go try some slightly more and more complex examples. So here we have stone and stack. So what would be your phrase here if we're swapping the order round? So stack becomes the noun. So yeah, absolutely. Hopefully you would have said the stone stack, or maybe you said the stoned stack, depending on your background and what you were doing with yourself for the last 10 years. I don't judge. But yeah, the stone stack. And stone becomes the adjective, and stack becomes the noun. So let's have a look at some weirder examples that don't make so much sense. Let's take tree and wall. So let's make a construction with tree as an adjective and wall as a noun. The tree wall. It's not particularly logical, but just because the tree is in front of wall, we know that the tree is being used as an adjective to describe the noun wall. And although a tree wall isn't a particularly common thing, the moment you say that to a native speaker, they will go, ah, a wall made of trees. And I'm sure you can imagine that very easily. Let's have a look at another. Let's go. Stone logs. So we've got stone now being used as our adjective. It's no longer a noun. Logs are our noun, stone are our adjective. The stone logs. Again, it's a slightly strange combination, but just because we have stone in front of logs, we know that stone is the adjective and logs are the noun. And again, as a native speaker, if I say that in that order, you would be able to imagine logs made of stone, regardless how realistic or not that is. So let's have a go at just making a few nonsensical ones of your own. Just try combining a few of those words together to make some entirely new phrases. Just stick a couple together, doesn't matter whether they're realistic or unrealistic. Just remember, as long as you have the and then one of those words and then another one, you can make a phrase with an adjective and a noun. Okay, let's have a look at some examples of my own. These aren't all the examples out there. You may have come up with different ones, but some of the ones I created were the open logs, the door trees, the stack green, the door grass, the stone fell. Even though some of these are near nonsense, we still understand what they do, how they work in a sentence. So the stone fell, even although the word fell isn't a particularly common noun, or just one I made up, we'd still understand that the fell is the noun and stone is the adjective. Although I suppose you could say the stone fell as a sentence on its own, so it could be a bit ambiguous. But here we're looking at the adjective noun. The important thing is the word order. Adjective noun. We only tell that something's an adjective because it's describing a noun, and it doesn't matter what that word is, it's the order they come in. And this is called syntax. And you'll sometimes hear people talking about grammar and syntax. And syntax is really important in English. English is a really powerful, really flexible language because of how much emphasis it places on syntax. And it makes it very easy for beginners to speak simple sentences in English because so much meaning is dependent just on the word order, and you don't need to mess around with the words very much themselves, because as long as they are in the right order, we know what they're doing. We know if a word is in place 1, place 2, place 3 or place 4 in a sentence, whether it's an object, an action, something describing the object or something describing the action. And so for beginners with English, certainly, it's very easy. Once you've got that noun, verb, noun construction down and the adjectives, all very easy. However, it does make it really problematic for native English speakers to learn other languages that have much more complicated grammar. For instance, German, because the word order is less important in German. You can move a lot of the elements of a sentence around in German and it will still make sense because the German messes around with the words themselves a lot more to tell you what they're doing in a sentence. So just as a little practice, we're going to have a little bit of culture, and we're going to look at one of the most famous English language poems, The Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. So Lewis Carroll was a writer but also a linguist. As far as I know, not a stoned poet, but being a linguist is similar, only much, much worse. And we're going to listen to and look at the poem Jabberwocky to see exactly how much you can get away with in English and still have it make sense just based on syntax. So as you're going through this, can you try and look out for adjectives and nouns?
Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. Read for LibriVox.org by Justin Brett. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome raths outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jubjub bird, and shun the fruminous Bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the manxome foe he sought. So rested he by the Tumtum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock, with eyes of flame, came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjous day, Callooh, Calais, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wave. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome raths outgrabe.
Even though Lewis Carroll created a lot of new words for that poem, it makes a sort of sense to English speakers. We can follow what's going on there. It creates an image in our head. We might not be 100% certain about exactly what he was talking about, but nonetheless, it still makes sense to us. When you were listening to it, did you get to spot any parts of speech? Could you see any nouns or adjectives? Don't worry if you didn't. We'll have a look at some of the sentences now, and I'm sure you'll be able to find them. What in the name of tarnation is a Bandersnatch? I, for one, have no idea, but I can tell you it's frumious. Now, which of these is the adjective and which is the noun? Frumious is the adjective and Bandersnatch is the noun. And so very quickly, he took his vorpal sword in hand, which is the adjective. Yep, that's right, it's vorpal. I have no idea what vorpal is, but we know it's describing the sword, so we can guess it's something you can make swords out of. I'm sure that after a quarter of an hour of being beaten over the head by the theory, you've got the idea now. What we're going to do with that knowledge is to attempt to spot the different parts of speech in a whole verse here. So we're going to try and do all the 4 categories that we've learned so far, which are nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. And even though there are a lot of nonsense words in this sentence, presumably words that you've not seen before or aren't aware of, you're going to try and decide what part of speech those words are. I'll give you about 30 seconds to do this, but if you need more time, don't worry, just pause the video. Okay, let's go through this section by section and we'll have a look for our parts of speech. So, in the first line, we've got 2 nouns. The first one is it, which is hidden at the beginning, and I wouldn't worry too much about that. It's using a very old construction, was, which is just it was put together, in the same way that we use isn't in modern day English. The second more important noun is toves, and you should be able to spot toves as a noun because it's got the and then an adjective in front of it. Our verbs are just was, so our verb, and adjectives, there are 2 adjectives there, brillig and slithy. Brillig after the verb to be, it was brillig, and slithy before toves to describe the toves, and there are no adverbs there. The second line, we have a lot of verbs here. We in fact have did, gyre and gimble. So 3 verbs there. Gaia and Gimbal are completely made up, and did is the past tense of the verb do, which is a very well used verb. 1 noun in there, which is wabe, the wabe, and no descriptive words, just actions and a noun. The next line, we have all mimsy were the Borogoves, and Borogoves are our noun. Don't know what they are, but there's a lot of them. Our verb is were. Again, we've got the verb to be in the past tense and the plural. Nonetheless, still the verb to be. We have an adjective in mimsy, and no adverbs. And in the last line, we have the noun, which is the raths, an adjective describing the raths, which is mom raths. No idea what mom raths are, but nonetheless, the raths are the noun. And we can spot this because they've got a plural at the end, an S plural at the end, and a the before an adjective. It's the mom raths. And we can take a good guess that outgrabe is going to be a verb, just because it's after the noun, and that's what makes sense looking at this sentence. And so there we go. Even though it's a nonsensical verse from a nonsensical poem, hopefully you've managed to find some of the parts of speech in there. Well done.